Since there is no way known to science by which the planets could influence human events, it is natural that scientists have rejected astrology. On the other hand, people who have studied the subject find enough evidence for its validity so that, despite a lack of quantitative precision comparable to some science, there is sufficient evidence for general agreement among those who practice the subject that they can employ the same rules and get the same results. We come thus to an impasse between theory or belief and fact. How is it possible for the position of planets to affect our lives? To this question there is an answer. There has been a great deal of study of circadian, near to 24-hour, and other biological rhythms, and it is currently agreed that these rhythms are endogenous, produced from within, originating from internal causes. Thus Brown found that the metabolism of the potato varies with the time of day and the time of year, and this variation still takes place when the potato is isolated from temperature and barometric changes. Oysters transported to Chicago readjust their biological rhythm to suit the tides as they would be if there were tides in Chicago. This is one of the endogenous rhythms that characterize life. But there are no tides in Chicago. The rhythm that correlates to tidal change must be due to that which causes tides, which is the moon. I do not think this could be the gravitational, because gravitation causes 26 extra high tides per year, whereas there are only 13 lunar months per year. That is, 13 new moons. My reason for thinking it is the moon is that I've been collecting clam shells for many years because the rings on the clam shells suggest that the rings record the clam's growth. There are many rings, which vary from wide to narrow. By count the rings are compressed every 13 rings. If the influence were tidal, there should be 26 rings each year. The narrowly spaced rings must indicate winter months. So, since the number of rings correlates to new moons rather than to the extra high tides, which occur at both the new and the full moon, and since there are no tides anyway in Chicago, the oysters must be responding to new moons for astrological reasons. Thus the biorhythms characteristic of life, which depend on position of the Earth with respect to the Sun, cannot be accounted for by known physical means. To sum up, the rejection of astrology by science is based on the belief of science that there is no way for planets to influence life. This belief is opposed by the practitioners of astrology, who find a factual correlation between the position of the planets and the dates of important events in life. But the principles on which physics is based do not predict or even accommodate life. Life requires a narrow temperature range and a periodic alternation of this temperature, and hence a very special environment, requiring a planetary system with a certain type of sun. This makes life depend on contingency rather than law, and indicates that while the laws of nature are necessary to life, they are not sufficient. Since alternation, periodic change, of temperature is necessary to the evolution of organic life in plants and animals, it would seem that the evolution of consciousness, which has its inception in organisms which move against entropy, should for its completion require an alternation of longer period than the daily or yearly alternation of temperature. This is what the outer planets supply. As for the question of how the planets can influence mundane events, this problem already exists in biological rhythms, which have been found to be endogenous, that is, not dependent on known physical influence.